Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Libertine Holdings PLC full year results investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your questions at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, all questions will be reviewed with responses published on the Investor Meet Company platform where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll, and if you could give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand you over to CEO Sam Cockrell. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jake, and good morning to everyone in the audience today. Welcome to Libertine's presentation of our financial year results for the year ended 31st of March 2022, our first full year results since our successful IPO in December last year. We raised £9 million gross at IPO to fund our technology and business development for scale up. And in this presentation, we're going to take you through the highlights of our year and provide an update on recent developments and the outlook for the present financial year and beyond. So in the financial year to 31st of March 2022, as we said in our admission document, we entered into a framework agreement with GE, and development activities commenced in August of 2021, which are continuing. We've also secured an additional £400,000 or so of grant funding to demonstrate clean combustion of hydrogen and CNG in a flex fuel implementation in our performance validation prototype for heavy-duty hybrid powertrains. And that work with Marla Powertrain is also ongoing. In terms of the financial highlights, we secured £2.9 million of commercial and grant income in the period and finished with £6.7 million of cash reserves at the period end. Since the 31st of March of 2022, we've also now been awarded the London Stock Exchange's Green Economy Mark, which recognises the significant contribution that our company and our technology is likely to make to the green transition. Just this week, we've announced a new strategic development partnership with OMI, an Italian developer of small format two-stroke and four-stroke engines. I'll talk a bit more about that later on. We've also formed a new wholly owned US subsidiary, Intelligent Inc., which will help as we increase our focus on US-based customers, supply chain, and technology development partners. And finally, our performance validation prototype, LGN 120, has been completed. We're now looking forward to combustion testing with this unit, together with Marla Powertrain and other of our strategic development partners from the third quarter of this financial year, the final calendar quarter of this year. Just recapping our business overview. So what we do, we develop, manufacture, and license technology for clean and efficient power generation using renewable fuels. So that could be green hydrogen, could be bioethanol, biomethanol. There are a wide range of future low carbon and renewable fuels. And this presents a challenge for some engine and power generation technologies, which linear generators can solve. And our contribution to the creation of linear generator products is in the form of a technology platform. And that platform, you can see the elements on the right-hand side here. The platform combines linear electrical machines, the blue bits here, together with power electronics and motion control systems, presently in some of those cabinets to the top right in the image, but in future, which will be compressed down and integrated within the linear electromechanical systems of our linear generators. And we provide this platform to our original equipment manufacturer customers so that they can develop their own proprietary linear generator products. And as I say, we're having completed a fairly intense year of design, development, and procurement. We now have this hardware under our roof and ready to go. So it's a very exciting position to be in. I think on this next slide, if we can play the video here, this shows you what's going on inside those cylinders. So in the white bit in the middle, you can see there's a chamber. That's where the combustion or the fuel and air reaction takes place. But on either side of that combustion system, we have our linear electromechanical systems, including the electrical machines and the bearings and so on. And through our software control, we provide very precise control of the combustion and the fuel air reaction, which allows it to be super efficient and very clean. So just back to our presentation. Now, some of you might recall from our IPO materials, we looked at the category, this new technology category of linear generators, and looked at how that can perform other range extender options. And in particular, linear generators have the potential to offer the efficiency of fuel cells with the fuel flexibility, which is a bit challenging to achieve in other thermal power generation technologies like conventional engines and PEM fuel cells, for example. So providing the efficiency of fuel cells is great. The fuel flexibility for this future, more complex net zero fuels landscape, but carrying over the durability and the cost of conventional internal combustion engines. And that's really where we see the role of the category, this new category, linear generators, playing, sitting somewhere between fuel cells and conventional engines and marrying together the best of both. Our licensing model is a capital light model in which we provide our technology platform to our customers to help them evaluate our technology and to support their development of their own proprietary linear generator products. And through those activities, we earn engineering fees, and that's where most of our income comes from today. But the purpose of that development from our side is so that our customers see value and realize value through applying our technology in their products. And when they do so, we earn manufacturing IP, license fees, and unit royalties from each and every linear generator product that's sold. So when we go into relationships with OEMs, we set out this model so there's a clear expectation of how we expect to operate through the development process and beyond to support the integration of our technology and the use of our technology in end products. And those end products could be in buses, in trucks, in other distributed power generation applications. Now that model means that our revenue mix is going to change over time. As I said, today, most of our revenue comes from engineering services, and we expect that to be supplemented by advanced license fees before mass production starts. And then following mass production in the course of the next few years, we would expect an increasing proportion of our revenue to come from unit royalties. Now, that has implications for where we're focused as a business. Presently, we're focused on creating partnerships and undertaking joint product development to drive the adoption of our technology. We expect that to increasingly shift towards supporting manufacturing development so our technology can be made cost effectively, and then at a later stage supporting production ramp up and the technology enhancements that go along with that. And as we change our focus over time, we'll continue to work with these 4 types of partners and customers on the right-hand side. So the power generator OEMs, the companies making linear generator products, they are the focus for us. But the end product OEMs, so the manufacturers of trucks and buses and so on, these are also important partners because they help to create pull. They demonstrate the economics and the value of the technology in end products through demonstration programs and pilot programs. On the right-hand side, manufacturing partners, so companies who would in future be manufacturing our power electronics, our motion control hardware, manufacturing our electrical machines, those manufacturing partners are also valuable in helping to create the supply chain that power generator OEMs will be able to rely on as they start to scale up production. And across the board, strategic development partners are important to help us extend our reach. So getting our technology in front of the OEMs and into their field of view, that's much easier to do if we're working with credible strategic development partners like Mahler Powertrain and like OMI. But just on to some recent developments then. So we've continued to deliver engineering services throughout last financial year and since the year end. And that's been to customers based in Europe and in the US. And through that period, we've also seen an increasing engagement with prospective OEM clients and manufacturing partners on a global basis. That includes in the UK, in the US, in Europe, and in India in particular, where some of the challenges and some of the barriers to pure battery electrification are particularly acute. Just a week or 2 ago, we had Cummins visiting us in Sheffield. So Duncan Engham is the Director for Research and Technology for Cummins Europe. And just one example of a number of OEMs that we've got good discussions underway with at the moment as we showcase our technology and what it can do. I mentioned the strategic partnership with OMI. So OMI's core business is creating designs for small format 2-stroke and 4-stroke engines for scooter manufacturers, for light 3-wheelers, and for other applications, including marine and distributed power applications. And OMI approached Libertine recognizing through the customer relationships that they have that there is a need for more efficient and cleaner power generators at the sort of small formats that their customers typically work with. So we're now working with OMI on more power-dense versions of our technology, and we should have more news about some of the interesting products and the interesting opportunities coming out of that work, both as our own technology is showcased and also as OMI take this technology to their customers. We've also formed a wholly owned US subsidiary, Intelligent Inc., and this is there to support our business development activities in the US, as well as customer delivery for our existing customers and our procurement activities. Some of our control technologies we source in the US at the moment. And we also have technology development activities with partners in the US today. So Intelligent Inc. Sets us up for an increasing focus on those activities in the US. And I think it's significant that the US has recently, through the Inflation Reduction Act, signaled a really strong intent to drive the adoption of cleaner technologies on their path to lowering the greenhouse gas emissions of the US and supporting that in a way that reduces inflation and that's economically viable. And I think that's the key. So we look to the US and we look at the pull for our technology in the US and definitely see some opportunities there. And then finally, the performance validation prototype, some of the hardware you saw on one of the earlier slides, has now been completed, and that will be down to Marla Powertrain, another of our strategic development partners, for combustion testing in the latter part of this year, initially using hydrous bioethanol, the same combustion fuel we were using previously, but then switching to green hydrogen and to compressed natural gas and blends of the two. And it's that fuel flexibility which is going to be really interesting for the OEMs we're speaking to, and in particular showing how we can achieve combustion with really low exhaust emissions. You might have heard of nitrous oxide emissions or NOx emissions, and this is sometimes seen as one of the challenges to putting hydrogen into a conventional internal combustion engine. Well, what we'd like to show with Marla Powertrain is with the opposed piston format that we have in the performance validation prototype, NOx emissions can be very, very low. Just on the market overview, again, this recaps a slide that we put into our IPO materials, and this is as relevant as ever. We see the scope for our technology to be adopted going well beyond heavy-duty powertrains and well beyond the package generator applications where linear generators are in commercial use today in the US. The development that we're looking at with OMI will support some of the smaller scale applications, and in combination, we remain of the view that the addressable market for gensets incorporating our technology could be in the region of $80 to $120 billion. I've included here a quote from Jamie Turner, a professor at KAUST and also previously a professor at Bath University in the UK, who knows a thing or two about opposed piston combustion, and who's very bullish about the potential of the technology for opposed piston engines generally as a very efficient and clean way of using hydrogen. So I think it's useful that we're seeing externally a recognition that this format for using fuels could solve the challenge of efficiency using green hydrogen with very low NOx emissions. I'll just hand over to Gareth now, who can walk you through our financial performance.
Thanks, Sam, and good morning, everybody. Over the next couple of slides, I'll provide an overview of our financial performance for the year ended 31 March 2022 as compared to the prior year. During the year, we delivered 2.9 million of recognised income split between commercial revenues and grant income. All of our commercial revenues were in relation to engineering services, where we are supporting the integration of our technology platform into new products for our customers. Commercial revenues increased significantly in the year as a result of the joint development framework agreement that we signed with GE in August last year. The first phase of engineering on this development agreement began during the year and has continued since the year end. Grant income of 2.1 million related to a 12-month programme that was delivered across the year for the development of our LGN 120 performance validation prototype for heavy-duty powertrain applications. That was the system that you saw in the picture that Sam had earlier on the Lab 4 that is now ready to commence its testing and then move down to Marlow Powertrain for further work. Since the year end, we've also been awarded additional grant funding for the further development of this platform that will then get into the fuel flexibility testing that Sam set out earlier. From a cost point of view, our cost of sales increased in line with the increased revenue and increased grant income work that we did in the year. And our admin expenses increased as we started to invest in the run-up and post-IPO in our engineering and our technology development teams, as well as having the incremental costs that come post-IPO. From an exceptional charges and net interest charges lines, these are both impacts from the IPO. So the exceptional items being professional fees predominantly incurred for the IPO, and the net interest charge relates to a movement in the fair value of a convertible loan note that we previously had on the balance sheet. The convertible loan note was settled as part of the IPO, and so both of those items are not expected to continue as we go forward. I'll just move you through to the balance sheet. And from a balance sheet point of view, you see the impacts of the IPO. So you see the increase in our cash balance to 6.7 million at the end of the year. And you also see the settlement of our borrowings, which was the convertible loan note that we had on the balance sheet previously. The movement in our working capital balances, our receivables and our payables, just demonstrate the timing and the quantum of the work that we're doing on the commercial revenues and on the grant income. All of these receivables and payables are settled on standard terms. That was a quick run through of the kind of financial performance. I'll now pass you over back to Sam, who will take you through our outlook and our summary.
Gareth, thanks very much. So Libertine, we are still focused on developing long-term relationships with OEMs, manufacturing partners, and strategic development partners. And it's through these relationships that we generate engineering service revenues today ahead of licensing for high volume manufacture in future. Now, of course, like many businesses, we've worked through significant global supply chain challenges last year. And this means components that are going into our technology, controllers, magnets, power electronics, and so on. All of these have suffered supply chain challenges that have pushed out the delivery of some of our equipment, in some cases by months. Fortunately, that challenge is substantially behind us now. We have the equipment under our roof, and this gives us the confidence through the prototype that we've brought together to move ahead. And the global challenges that sit beyond our walls, the global challenges of climate change, energy security, these are greater than ever before. The need for more cost-effective means to solve greenhouse gas emissions and to do so in a way that improves resilience for electrical power. These have never been greater. And now that we've got our performance validation prototype complete, we believe that Libertine is really well placed to demonstrate how linear generators can play a really significant role in solving some of these challenges. We'll be working to bring the benefits of linear generator technology into the hands of our prospective partners through their development programs and into the mass market. Just to recap then, so we, as a company, we have proprietary linear generator technology. We provide OEM solutions through our technology platform for hard to decarbonize sectors. So trucks, buses, off-highway heavy-duty powertrains, sectors with really large addressable markets. And we monetize the value we create through engineering service revenues and ultimately through licensing technology to our OEM customers and manufacturing partners. We work with strategic development partners like Marlow Powertrain, like OMI, to increase our market reach and to make sure that we can get our technology into the hands and into the labs of our OEM partners as soon as possible. And we continue to deliver on our commercial and grant income contracts and to invest in the development of our next generation of technology. And having now completed our performance validation prototype, and having seen the amount of interest that this is generating from prospective OEM customers, we think we're now well placed for growth. So that concludes our presentation, and we're now very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Sam, Gareth, that's great, and thank you very much indeed for your presentation this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab that's situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the team takes a few moments to review those questions that were submitted already, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Sam, Gareth, as you can see, we have received a number of questions that were submitted throughout today's presentation. So thank you very much to all of those on the call for their engagement today. I will shortly invite you to open up that Q&A tab and respond to those questions where it's appropriate to do so. But perhaps before doing so, we did also receive a number of pre-submitted questions ahead of today's event from investors. And if I may, I wanted to start off the Q&A session with these. The first one that we have here reads as follows: what should investors be looking for in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. So the next 6 to 12 months for us are all about delivery. Having brought the LGN 120 performance validation prototype together, we would expect to be able to show the operation of this technology as we've started to do. I mentioned the visit we had from Cummins. When that's gone down to the test cell with Marla Powertrain, we would expect that is going to also allow a much sort of better, richer experience for the customers and potential customers that we're showing our technology to. And that is also, I think, going to feature in the discussions that are already underway with OEMs in the US and in India, who are keenly interested in the outcome of the development in the final quarter of this calendar year and the first quarter of next year. So what should investors be looking out for? Probably news in connection with some of those OEM relationships, the MOUs that we'll be signing, the kind of roadmap towards product and the market applications that the demonstration of our technology will help to evidence.
Thank you very much for that, Sam. That's great. And the second pre-submitted question that we have here reads as follows: could you talk a little bit more about what makes your technology unique and why it can't be easily replicated?
Yeah, so as we've mentioned, we've got a pretty strong patent portfolio, over 30 granted national phase patents now. The focus of that portfolio is around how we miniaturize, how we preserve the benefits of large format linear generators, and to do so in a way which can be shrunk down into a format that would work on board a powertrain application like a heavy duty vehicle, truck or a bus or a tractor, or, in powertrain applications, you only have limited space. You only have limited mass. So power density and, how much power you get out of the space available and from a given mass, that really matters. So a lot of our IP and certainly a lot of our know-how that we're now accumulating inside the company relates to how you take what would otherwise, fill a shipping container and compact that down into something that can, sit between the chassis rails of a truck, or go into a small package generator set for a telco tower application.
That's great. The third pre-submitted question we have, I believe you did touch on throughout the presentation, perhaps if there's a bit more colour to add. Are you able to provide any more detail on IntelliGen, OMI and future projects?
Yeah, so IntelliGen Inc., the US entity, as I've said, relates to a lot of the activity which is presently ongoing in the US and gives us essentially a vehicle through which we can establish more of and grow more of those activities. So those span the existing customer relationships we have in the US. We're working, as we mentioned, with GE and also with Southwest Research. We are working with technology development partners in the US, and we source some of our control technology and power electronics in the US. So IntelliGen essentially recognizes that focus and that amount of activity and sets us up to grow that. The strategic development partnership with OMI, that's, from my perspective, very interesting because in the past we've had a very clear focus on heavy duty vehicles. We haven't really given too much thought to how our technology could be applied in much smaller applications. OMI came to us with this in mind, exactly this in mind, from their customers that they have who make like two-wheelers and three-wheelers, and in some cases make electric two and three-wheelers, and who are looking for ways to support electric propulsion in those vehicles with a degree of battery electrification, but who are also anxious that recharging infrastructure is just not there and will not be there for the kind of mass market adoption that they need to see. Now, the other interesting aspect of the relationship with OMI is they have a much wider portfolio of customers. It's not just about these sort of light three-wheelers across the Asian subcontinent. And as we look ahead, it's interesting that distributed power generation and series hybridization they're converging. And the power generators that we'll be developing together with OMI, those sort of bare generator sets, if you like, a linear generator product, doesn't really care whether it's sitting on 2 wheels or 3 wheels or 4 wheels or none. It's just producing clean power from renewable fuels. And OMI have latched onto this. They understand the very significant market potential for products in the region of maybe 5 or 10 kilowatts of electrical power output, which could be equally at home on a small light 3 or 4 wheeler, or in a distributed power application like mobile telco towers. So I think we'll see where that technology development takes us. We're obviously very keen on taking the strategic development partnership as far as we can, and then getting more insight from OMI's customers. And I'm hoping we'll have some more news to report on that in the coming year.
Thank you very much for that, Sam. And the final pre-submitted question that we have here reads as follows. Can you please talk a bit more about the global markets where you think your technology will be most prevalent?
Yeah, so I put the market slide up showing where we think the total addressable market shapes up to be. One of the grant-funded projects we have in the UK at the moment is badged red diesel replacement. Right? So red diesel is used in off-highway applications, construction, mining, forestry, agriculture, typically places where you're a long way from the grid. The focus for that work is in construction and mining. So there we are, I think, going to see interest from industrials looking for cleaner solutions for those applications. It'd be great to see some uptake in agricultural applications as well, where a lot of innovation is taking place across all the different means of producing crops, cost effectively. We've talked about on-highway heavy-duty powertrains. I think in certain parts of the world, light-duty powertrains could also be in scope. Again, we've not focused on that, but if we look outside of North America and Europe, in India and elsewhere in Asia and sub-Saharan Africa and South America, for example, the challenges that come when you have relatively high levels of growth, but you have a limited grid, and where the grid is substantially not fully decarbonized, let's say. In those regions, I can anticipate there also being a degree of pull from some passenger automotive applications as well. So I think my point here is that the application of our technology platform could be very broad. We are listening to customers and where they see the application requirements being, and we want to respond to that. We're always going to be led by customer insight, and we're not going to be pushing technology where we think it's going to work best. We're going to be working with customers and working with them to help them create value using our platform.
Sam, thank you very much for that. And that actually does conclude the pre-submitted questions that we had come in ahead of today's event. And as you can see in the Q&A tab, we have also received a number of questions. So perhaps if I may just hand back to you to run through that Q&A tab, and where appropriate to do so, if you could please just read out the questions and give your response, and then I'll pick up from you at the end. Thank you.
Very good. So a question from Mark: what are your priorities and where is the management focus for the rest of the year? So our priority is really around business development and using the progress that we've made with our technology to provide substantial evidence of the performance of linear generators using our e-machines and our controls. So I think we often talk in the same breath about technology and business development, and of course they are one and the same. A substantial OEM wants to understand how our platform technology can be used in their products to achieve, to create value by achieving a really strong product market fit. So for us, business development is all about understanding the customer need through the eyes of the OEMs we're speaking to, and then helping them to evidence the product market fit. And that's going to be a big focus for us in the course of this next year. The next question down, I'm just going to go down these questions until we run out of time, unless anyone wants to jump in with a strong steer. So Matthew asks, post-IPO, how's the company's headcount grown in size? Do you manage your commercial sales through an internal sales team, or is this outsourced? So I guess two questions there. We have been growing our headcount. We've been doing that in a measured way. We've been making sure that we're matching our headcount growth to the projects that we have and the projects we're anticipating to sell. So I think we're up to in the region of sort of 18 or so. No, Gareth will have the exact number. From I think just over 10 at the beginning of the year, and that's a manageable rate of growth. We do generate sales through our internal activities. We've got a good network. We also extend our reach through working with companies like Marla Powertrain, We've had some introductions through the technology partner we work with in the US. And we also have a number of part-time consultants we work with, and we've worked with for a long time, whose network just allows us to place our technology in front of the companies to whom we think it's going to be of most interest. And I think that approach is likely to continue. I think as we harden our technology and as we firm up our business development and our sales proposition, it'll get easier to scale that up. But at the moment, I think we've been successful in generating an increasing amount of OEM customer interest, and it's now up to us to convert that into new commercial sales. Another question from Mark: is there any kind of exclusivity with your partnership with OMI? And what key milestones should we look out for from this partnership? So with OMI and also with Marla Powertrain, we're not working exclusively with either of these two strategic development partners. We are helping them to create value by adopting our technology and presenting our technology, marketing our technology essentially to their customers. The milestones we're looking for, obviously with Marla Powertrain, we've got a clear technology delivery program which is going to produce results in the course of the remainder of this calendar year and the first quarter next year. With OMI, we're at an earlier stage, but there will be news in terms of the design developments that are underway and the applications where their customers and our customers see for those smaller, more compact power generators. Let's just carry on going down then. So a question from Sam. Can you run us through what the company's financial runway looks like over the coming years, and what can investors expect in terms of future equity dilution? I'll hand that one over to Gareth.
Yeah, so when we came to the market, the IPO, we raised £9 million gross, £7.5 million net, with really the intention of using those funds to invest in our technology and allow us to continue to invest in our capacity and our teams and work through the kind of phases of engineering service delivery, so helping to integrate our product with our customers into their wider products, so our platform into their wider products, so that we can then get through to kind of the later licensing phase of the model. So our expectations is that over the next couple of years, you will see us utilizing some of that cash as we invest in the teams ahead of those licensing phases come through. And then towards the back end of our kind of 5-year plan, we expect the licensing phases to come through, which will then bring through kind of more profitability or bring us through to hopefully to a level of profitability and managing our own cash base. Now, that is our kind of base model, if you will, and that is the model that we are working towards. But we are very conscious of and very aware of the benefits of being on the market and the opportunity that might bring at some stage to potentially doing additional capital raises. And one of the things that we are have in our mind that we're not kind of specifically working on at the moment is the potential in similar ways to the likes of Ceres Power, who have brought in industrial investment to kind of not in full-scale acquisitions, but in smaller 10%, 5% stakes from industrials that are really providing a kind of validation to the technology and the software. So we are working on the first base case model that I talked about, but if that opportunity arises as we start to work closer with some of these major OEM operators, then that might be of interest to us going forward, which will allow us to accelerate, for example, the manufacturing capabilities that we have and how we move forward. So we've got our eyes focused on one business model, but we're also aware of other opportunities that may arise as we move forward. But really, the keys at this stage are the points that Sam set out in terms of the validation of our technology and performance validation that we can then take to customers.
Thanks, Gareth. Another question here from John C. The question is, could Libertine's linear generator be used in an electric vehicle? The picture you showed is that you're a power source and not a motor or inverter. In other words, could your technology work with an axial flux motor like that of Saeta? It's a good question, and so the answer is absolutely. And in fact, I'll go even further than that. Our technology in a powertrain application, our technology can only be used in an electrically propelled vehicle, right? So one of the things about a linear generator is nothing spins coming out of it. So we can't, put mechanical power output directly from a linear generator. We have to put power onto the sort of electrical power supply on the vehicle, what's called the DC bus. And therefore, we can only operate in a vehicle that has a DC power supply, has a battery of sorts, and has wheel motors and has the control means to sort of manage the flow of power between all of those things. Now, fortunately, all of those technologies and the market use of those technologies are growing very, very rapidly. And this creates the perfect home for linear generator technology. I think if that weren't the case, then there would be a bit of a hill to climb to persuade people that, well, series hybrid vehicles will have a role to play. But we are seeing a very widespread recognition that if you have an electric vehicle that has, battery and wheel motors, it creates the opportunity for another technology like a fuel cell or like a conventional IC engine, or as we propose here, like a linear generator, to help that mix economically and practically achieve market adoption. So I think the answer to that question is emphatically yes.
Sam, Gareth, if I may just jump back in there, and thank you very much indeed for taking the time to address all of those questions that came in from investors today. And of course, if there are any further questions that are submitted today, we'll make these available to you immediately after the presentation has ended for you to review. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll publish all those responses where it's appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. Sam, perhaps before redirecting those on the call to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to yourself and the company, if I could please just ask you for a few closing comments to wrap up with, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. So we came to market in December 2021, and I don't think anyone anticipated at the end of that year just how challenging 2022 would be for the global economy, and in terms of the shocks that have hit us and the impact that some of those shocks have had on energy cost. Inflation has been a real concern for a lot of people now, and the challenges of climate change haven't gone away. So for us, the rationale for linear generator technology has never been stronger. And it's not only created by the need for low carbon solutions, it's also supported by the need for more cost-effective sources of energy, for better resilience on grids, right? So across the board, we see a really strong fit between the capabilities of linear generator technology and what the market needs, in the immediate future and in the coming decades as we transition to a low carbon, resilient and energy abundant economy.
That's great. Sam, Gareth, thank you very much indeed for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Libertine Holdings PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good afternoon to you all.